The year 2021 is well underway, and with spring glooming, we are starting to think about the next season of Dana White's Contender Series, where we see a major influx of new talent getting signed to the UFC. Last year, I put together a top 10 Canadian fighters that we want to see in the UFC list, and my old top 3, which consisted of TJ Laramie, KB Bueller, and Malcolm Gordon, all got their shot. I thought we could repeat the experience this year and try to manifest some good luck for some of our favorite Canadian fighters. So here are my top 10 Canadian fighters that we want to see in the UFC in 2021. I have tried to focus my list on fighters who had the chance to stay active in 2020, as there are better chances that they are in the UFC site if they were able to fight recently, especially for promotions like CFFC, LFA, UAE Warriors, and or Brave. There are some fighters who have been inactive for the last year and even more, and who really deserve a shot at the big leagues, but I just couldn't include them in the list because of their recent inactivity. And these guys are Yoni Sharbatov, Alex Morgan, and Mikael Dufal. And finally, I add Lupita Godinez pretty high on this list, but she just got signed to the UFC in early April, so I had to redo it, but it's all okay because we're really happy for her. Before we begin the top 10, let's look at some honorable mentions, as there are so many deserving fighters in Canada. Here they are in no particular order: Dayan Kajik, Jasmine Jesuda-Vicious, Christian Savoy, Chad Hanna-Liger, Neil Anderson, Johan Lennes, Sean Wallace, Tony Laramie, Teddy Ash, Jamie Lynn Ort Wessels, and finally Graham Park. Let's begin, and at number 10 we got Xavier Alaoui. I won't lie, I had Alaoui at number 3 before his last fight. Unfortunately, he lost his UAE Warriors Bantamweight title to Vinicius de Oliveira in his last bout. Before that, he was on a 4-fight winning streak and was as close as ever to get a shot at the big show. To be honest, he's probably still 1 or 2 wins away from the UFC, even though he just lost, so I kept him on the list, even though 2022 is probably a more realistic option for him at this point. At number 9, it's Jared Revel. The long-time BFL middleweight champion has been a staple of the Western Canadian MMA scene for a while now. After lots of success locally, he just earned the biggest win of his pro career in 2020 when he went to Brazil and defeated UFC veteran and BJJ world champ Sergio Moraes by convincing decision to upgrade his record to 11-2. The only problem with Revel is probably his age, as he's on the older side at 36 years old, but he does not have much wear and tear, and he deserves as much as everyone else on this list to get a run at the UFC. At number 8, we've got Scott Hudson and Tom O'Connor. I'm putting these two together as they are both involved in the XFC lightweight tournament. Both of these guys are champ on the Canadian regional scene, and they both won their first fight to advance in the tournament. They're now set for the semi-finals, as O'Connor will be fighting Kenny Cross and Hudson will meet the UFC veteran Kurt Olabaugh. If any or even both of them get to the finals and one wins the whole thing, he would become a prime contender to sign a UFC deal, as the level of competition in this tournament is pretty high. At number 7, we've got Christian Larson. The fighter from Shave Bears MMA is a training partner of actual UFC heavyweight Tanner Boser, and is a prime candidate for a spot on the Contender Series this summer. The UFC is in constant need of new heavyweight talent, and the unified heavyweight champ is a very exciting fighter who has a 100% finish rate with 4 KOs and 1 submission win. I'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't featured on the Contender Series later this year, and that would be the perfect opportunity for him. At number 6, it's Mariusz Ksaskiewicz. The Iron Pole was featured on last year's Contender Series, and except for the judges, pretty much everybody thought he won his fight against Mario Souza. So even though he's coming off a loss right now, it'd pretty much be a robbery if he didn't get his second shot at the Contender Series this summer, and I'm pretty sure he would cash in on the opportunity the second time around. Let's go with the top 5 now, and at number 5, it's Jamie Siraj. It's been a long way back for Siraj, who's been dealing with various medical issues since 2019, but we're now hearing that he's back training and is looking for a comeback fight. He wants to fight for the BFL Featherweight Championship sometimes this year. With a record of 8-2 and a 5-fight winning streak, Siraj would have gotten the call somewhere last year if it wasn't for his injury problems. So my guess is that with one win in 2021, we could see him in the big leagues sooner rather than later. At number 4, it's the big cat, Jesse Arnett. The fact that Arnett is not already in the UFC is pretty astonishing in itself. He was infamously offered a spot at UFC 220 back in 2018 when he was the TKO Bantamweight champion and on a 12-fight winning streak, but he got blocked by the promoter he was under contract with at the time. He then lost back-to-back fight to Josh Hill and Taylor Lapillus, but he's now back on a winning streak with now 3 straight wins. Like Revel, Arnett's age is probably the thing holding him back, as the UFC prefers to sign younger guys, and he's 36 years old right now. But the big cat always stays ready, and he could be a prime contender for a short notice bout sometimes this year. To be quite honest, it would be a complete shame if Jesse Arnett had to retire without ever fighting in the UFC, so please, just give him his shot. At number 3, we've got Achilles Estremadura. Despite being one of the less experienced fighters on the list with only 7 pro fights, Achilles has been groomed as the top-level prospect since the start of his MMA career. The BFL homegrown talent has faced and dispatched an increasingly better level of competition since the beginning of his pro career in 2015, and his last win against Curtis Damaris in early 2021 leaves him in prime position for a spot on the Contender Series this summer. He can knock people out early in the fight, but he can also control them for the whole time if he needs to, and it's only a matter of time before he becomes the newest addition to the UFC's lightweight division. At number 2, it's Anthony Romero. The fact that Romero is not already in the UFC is pretty surprising, as he was featured on last year's Contender Series and he brilliantly dispatched of his opponent, showing probably the most UFC-ready style that night. However, he was snubbed by Dana White, who always prefers highlight reel finishes to dominant decision wins. Romero went on to win another fight before the end of the year as he defeated another great opponent at LFA 96. It would be very surprising if Romero didn't get another shot at the Contender Series this summer, and judging by what we saw from him in his undefeated 9 fights pro career, we will see him in the big leagues sooner rather than later, and he will be one of the best prospects there. And at number 1, it is Aaron Jeffery. It was really a toss-up between the teammates Jeffery and Romero, but AJ's recent streak is really tough to deny. Since his loss on the Contender Series to top middleweight prospect Brendan Allen, Jeffery has been on a complete tear. He bounced back from his loss with 3 KO wins before winning the CFFC middleweight championship from Colin Huckbuddy, who was signed by the UFC but asked for his release because he wanted to get a little more experience before making the jump. With now 4 wins in a row, another regional championship over his shoulder, a win over a UFC caliber opponent, and one of the best bullet stash combo in the game, I believe Aaron Jeffery is by far the most deserving Canadian fighter, and he has to be the next one in line to get a shot at the UFC. This concludes my top 10 Canadian fighters we want to see in the UFC in 2021. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. You can also follow MMA Talk on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify to stay tuned on the most important MMA news. Thanks a lot for watching and see you next time.